Hail, holy light, offspring of heaven firstborn, or of the eternal co-eternal being, may I express thee unblamed? Since God is light, and never but in unapproached light dwelt from eternity, dwelt then in thee bright effluence of bright essence increate. Or hear'st thou rather pure ethereal stream, whose fountain who shall tell? Before the sun, before the heavens thou wert, and at the voice of God as with a mantle didst invest the rising world of waters dark and deep, one from the void and formless infinite. Thee I revisit now with bolder wing, escaped the Stygian pool, though long detained in that obscure sojourn, while in my flight through utter and through middle darkness borne, with other notes than to the Orphean lyre, I sung of chaos and eternal night, taught by the heavenly muse to venture down the dark descent, and up to reascend, though hard and rare. Thee I revisit safe, and feel thy sovereign vital lamp. But thou revisit'st not these eyes, that roll in vain to find thy piercing ray, and find no dawn. So thick a drop serene hath quenched their orbs, or dim suffusion veiled. Yet not the more cease I to wander where the muses haunt clear spring, or shady grove, or sunny hill, smit with the love of sacred song. But chief thee, Zion, and the flowery brooks beneath that wash thy hallowed feet, and warbling flow, nightly I visit. Nor sometimes forget those other two, equalled with me in fate. So were I equalled with them in renown, blind Thamyris, and blind Meonides, and Tiresias, and Phineus, prophets old. Then feed on thoughts that voluntary move harmonious numbers, as the wakeful bird sings darkling, and in shadiest covert hid tunes her nocturnal note. Thus with the year seasons return, but not to me returns day, or the sweet approach of even or morn, or sight of vernal bloom, or summer's rose, or flocks, or herds, or human face divine, but cloud instead, and ever-during dark surrounds me, from the cheerful ways of men cut off, and for the book of knowledge fair, presented with a universal blank of nature's works to me expunged and raised, and wisdom at one entrance quite shut out. So much the rather, thou celestial light, shine inward, and the mind through all her powers irradiate. There plant eyes, all mist from thence purge and disperse, that I may see and tell of things invisible to mortal sight. Oh, for that warning voice, which he who saw the apocalypse heard cry in heaven aloud, then when the dragon, put to second rout, came furious down to be revenged on men. Woe to the inhabitants on earth, that now, while time was, our first parents had been warned the coming of their secret foe, and scaped, haply so scaped his mortal snare. For now Satan, now first inflamed with rage, came down, the tempter ere the accuser of mankind, to wreak on innocent frail man his loss of that first battle and his flight to hell. Yet not rejoicing in his speed, though bold, far off and fearless, nor with cause to boast, begins his dire attempt, which neither birth, now rolling, boils in his tumultuous breast, and like a devilish engine back recoils upon himself. Horror and doubt distract his troubled thoughts, and from the bottom stir the hell within him. For within him hell he brings, and round about him, nor from hell one step no more than from himself can fly, by change of place. Now conscience wakes despair that slumbered, wakes the bitter memory of what he was, what is, and what must be worse. Of worse deeds, worse sufferings must ensue. Sometimes towards Eden, which now in his view lay pleasant, his grieved look he fixes sad. Sometimes towards heaven and the full blazing sun, which now sat high in his meridian tower. Then much revolving, thus in sighs began.
O thou, that with surpassing glory crowned, look'st from thy sole dominion like the god of this new world, at whose sight all the stars hide their diminished heads. To thee I call, but with no friendly voice, and add thy name, O sun, to tell thee how I hate thy beams, that bring to my remembrance from what state I fell, how glorious once above thy sphere, till pride and worse ambition threw me down, warring in heaven against heaven's matchless king. Wherefore? He deserved no such return from me, whom he created what I was in that bright eminence, and with his good upbraided none, nor was his service hard. What could be less than to afford him praise, the easiest recompense, and pay him thanks, how due? Yet all his good proved ill in me, and wrought but malice. Lifted up so high, I disdained subjection, and thought one step higher would set me highest, and in a moment quit the debt immense of endless gratitude, so burdensome, still paying, still to owe. Forgetful what from him I still received, and understood not that a grateful mind by owing owes not, but still pays, at once indebted and discharged. What burden, then? Oh, had his powerful destiny ordained me some inferior angel, I had stood then happy. No unbounded hope had raised ambition. Yet why not? Some other power as great might have aspired, and me, though mean, drawn to his part. But other powers as great fell not, but stand unshaken, from within or from without, to all temptations armed. Hadst thou the same free will and power to stand? Thou hadst. Whom hast thou then, or what to accuse? But heaven's free love dealt equally to all. Be then his love accursed, since love or hate to me alike it deals eternal woe. Nay, cursed be thou, since against his thy will chose freely what it now so justly rues. Me miserable, which way shall I fly, infinite wrath and infinite despair? Which way I fly is hell. Myself am hell. And in the lowest deep, a lower deep, still threatening to devour me, opens wide, to which the hell I suffer seems a heaven. Oh, then, at last, relent. Is there no place left for repentance? None for pardon left? None left but by submission. And that word disdain forbids me, and my dread of shame among the spirits beneath, whom I seduced with other promises and other vaunts than to submit, boasting I could subdue the omnipotent. Ay me, they little know how dearly I abide that boast so vain, under what torments inwardly I groan, while they adore me on the throne of hell, with diadem and scepter high advanced. The lower still I fall, only supreme in misery. Such joy ambition finds. But say I could repent, and could obtain by act of grace my former state, how soon would height recall high thoughts? How soon unsay what feigned submission swore? Ease would recant vows made in pain as violent and void, for never can true reconcilement grow where wounds of deadly hate have pierced so deep, which would but lead me to a worse relapse and heavier fall. So should I purchase dear short intermission bought with double smart. This knows my punisher. Therefore as far from granting he as I from begging peace. All hope excluded thus, behold, instead of us outcast, exiled, his new delight, mankind created, and for him this world. So farewell hope, and with hope farewell fear, farewell remorse. All good to me is lost. Evil be thou my good. By thee at least divided empire with heaven's king I hold. By thee and more than half perhaps will reign as man ere long, and this new world shall know.
Thus while he spake, each passion dimmed his face, thrice changed with pale, ire, envy, and despair, which marred his borrowed visage, and betrayed him counterfeit, if any eye beheld. For heavenly minds from such distempers foul are ever clear, whereof he's soon aware, each perturbation smoothed with outward calm, artificer of fraud, and was the first that practised falsehood under saintly show, deep malice to conceal, couched with revenge. Yet not enough had practised to deceive Uriel once warned, whose eye pursued him down the way he went, and on the Assyrian mount saw him disfigured, more than could befall spirit of happy sort. His gestures fierce he marked, and mad demeanour then alone, as he supposed, all unobserved, unseen. So on he fares, and to the border comes of Eden, where delicious paradise, now nearer, crowns with her enclosure green, as with a rural mound, the champaign head of a steep wilderness, whose hairy sides with thicket overgrown, grotesque and wild, access denied. And overhead upgrew insuperable height of loftiest shade, cedar and pine and fir and branching palm, a sylvan scene, and as the ranks ascend, shade above shade, a woody theatre of stateliest view. Yet higher than their tops the verdurous wall of paradise upsprung, which to our general sire gave prospect large into his nether empire neighbouring round. Now to the ascent of that steep savage hill Satan had journeyed on, pensive and slow, but further way found none, so thick entwined as one continued brake the undergrowth of shrubs and tangling bushes had perplexed all path of man or beast that passed that way. One gate there only was, and that looked east on the other side, which when the arch-felon saw, due entrance he disdained, and in contempt at one slight bound high overleaped all bound of hill or highest wall, and sheer within lights on his feet. As when a prowling wolf, whom hunger drives to seek new haunt for prey, watching where shepherds pen their flocks at eve in hurdled cotes amid the fields secure, leaps o'er the fence with ease into the fold, or as a thief bent to unhoard the cash of some rich burgher, whose substantial doors, cross-barred and bolted fast, fear no assault, in at the window climbs or o'er the tiles, So clomb this first grand thief into God's fold. So since into his church lewd hirelings climb. Thence up he flew, and on the tree of life, the middle tree and highest there that grew, sat like a cormorant, yet not true life thereby regained, but sat devising death to them who lived, nor on the virtue thought of that life-giving plant, but only used for prospect, what well used had been the pledge of immortality. So little knows any but God alone to value right the good before him, but perverts best things to worst abuse, or to their meanest use. Beneath him with new wonder now he views, to all delight of human sense exposed, in narrow room nature's whole wealth, yea more, a heaven on earth, for blissful paradise of God the garden was, by him in the east of Eden planted. Eden stretched her line from Oran eastward to the royal towers of great Seleucia, built by Grecian kings, or where the sons of Eden long before dwelt in Telassa. In this pleasant soil his far more pleasant garden God ordained. Out of the fertile ground he caused to grow all trees of noblest kind, for sight, smell, taste, and all amid them stood the tree of life, high eminent, blooming ambrosial fruit of vegetable gold. And next to life, our death, the tree of knowledge, grew fast by, knowledge of good bought dear by knowing ill. Southward through Eden went a river large, nor changed his course, but through the shaggy hill passed underneath engulfed, for God had thrown that mountain as his garden mould high raised upon the rapid current, which through veins of porous earth with kindly thirst updrawn rose a fresh fountain, and with many a rill watered the garden. Thence united fell down the steep glade, and met the nether flood, which from his darksome passage now appears, and now divided into four main streams, runs divers, wandering many a famous realm and country, whereof here needs no account, but rather to tell how, if art could tell, how from that sapphire fount the crisped brooks, rolling on orient pearl and sands of gold, with mazy error under pendant shades ran nectar, visiting each plant, and fed flowers worthy of paradise, which not nice art in beds and curious knots, but nature boon, poured forth profuse on hill and dale and plain, both where the morning sun first warmly smote the open field, and where the unpierced shade embrowned the noontide bowers. Thus was this place a happy rural seat of various view, groves whose rich trees wept odorous gums and balm, others whose fruit burnished with golden rind hung amiable Hesperian fables true, if true here only, and of delicious taste. Betwixt them lawns or level downs, and flocks grazing the tender herb were interposed, or palmy hillock, or the flowery lap of some irriguous valley spread her store. Flowers of all hue, and without thorn the rose. Another side, umbrageous grots and caves of cool recess, o'er which the mantling vine lays forth her purple grape, and gently creeps luxuriant, meanwhile murmuring waters fall down the slope hills, dispersed, or in a lake, that to the fringed bank with myrtle crowned her crystal mirror holds, unite their streams. The birds their choir apply, airs, vernal airs, breathing the smell of field and grove, attune the trembling leaves, while universal Pan, knit with the graces and the hours in dance, led on the eternal spring. Not that fair field of Enna, where Proserpine gathering flowers, herself a fairer flower by gloomy Dis was gathered, which cost Ceres all that pain to seek her through the world, nor that sweet grove of Daphne by Orontes, and the inspired Castalian spring might with this paradise of Eden strive. Nor that Nicaean isle, girt with the river Triton, where old Cham, whom Gentiles Ammon call, and Libyan Jove, hid Amalthea and her florid son young Bacchus from his stepdame Rhea's eye. Nor where Abassin kings their issue guard, Mount Amara, though this by some supposed true paradise, under the Ethiop line, by Nilus' head enclosed with shining rock, a whole day's journey high, but wide remote from this Assyrian garden, where the fiend saw undelighted all delight, all kind of living creatures new to sight and strange. Two of far nobler shape, erect and tall, godlike erect, with native honour clad, in naked majesty seemed lords of all, and worthy seemed, for in their looks divine the image of their glorious Maker shone, truth, wisdom, sanctitude severe and pure, severe but in true filial freedom placed, whence true authority in men, though both not equal, as their sex not equal seemed, for contemplation he and valour formed, for softness she, and sweet attractive grace, he for God only, she for God in him. His fair large front and eye sublime declared absolute rule, and hyacinthine locks round from his parted forelock manly hung, clustering, but not beneath his shoulders broad. She as a veil down to the slender waist her unadorned golden tresses wore dishevelled, but in wanton ringlets waved, as the vine curls her tendrils, which implied subjection, but required with gentle sway, and by her yielded, by him best received, yielded with coy submission, modest pride, and sweet reluctant amorous delay. Nor those mysterious parts were then concealed. Then was not guilty shame, dishonest shame of nature's works, honour dishonourable, sin bred. How have ye troubled all mankind with shows instead, mere shows of seeming pure, and banished from man's life his happiest life, simplicity and spotless innocence? So passed they naked on, nor shunned the sight of god or angel, for they thought no ill. So hand in hand they passed, the loveliest pair that ever since in love's embraces met. Adam, the goodliest man of men since born his sons, the fairest of her daughters, Eve. Under a tuft of shade that on a green stood whispering soft, by a fresh fountain side they sat them down, and after no more toil of their sweet gardening labour than sufficed to recommend cool zephyr, and made ease more easy, wholesome thirst and appetite more grateful, to their supper fruits they fell, nectarine fruits which the compliant boughs yielded them, sidelong as they sat recline on the soft downy bank damasked with flowers. The savoury pulp they chew, and in the rind, still as they thirsted, scoop the brimming stream. Nor gentle purpose, nor endearing smiles wanted, nor youthful dalliance as beseems fair couple, linked in happy nuptial league alone as they. About them frisking played all beasts of the earth, since wild, and of all chase in wood or wilderness, forest or den. Sporting the lion ramped, and in his paw dandled the kid. Bears, tigers, ounces, pards gambolled before them. The unwieldy elephant, to make them mirth, used all his might, and wreathed his lithe proboscis. Close the serpent sly, insinuating, wove with Gordian twine his braided train, and of his fatal guile gave proof unheeded. Others on the grass couched, and now filled with pasture gazing sat, or bedward ruminating, for the sun, declined, was hasting now with prone career to the Ocean Isles, and in the ascending scale of heaven the stars that usher evening rose. When Satan, still in gaze, as first he stood, Scarce thus at length failed speech, recovered sad.
Oh, hell! What do mine eyes with grief behold? Into our room of bliss thus high advanced, creatures of other mould, earth-born perhaps, not spirits, yet to heavenly spirits bright, little inferior, whom my thoughts pursue with wonder, and could love, so lively shines in them divine resemblance, and such grace the hand that formed them on their shape hath poured. Ah, gentle pair, ye little think how nigh your change approaches, when all these delights will vanish and deliver ye to woe, more woe, the more your taste is now of joy. Happy, but for so happy, ill secured, long to continue, and this high seat your heaven, ill fenced for heaven to keep out such a foe as now is entered. Yet no purposed foe to you, whom I could pity thus forlorn, though I, unpitied, league with you I seek, and mutual amity so straight, so close, that I with you must dwell, or you with me henceforth. My dwelling haply may not please like this fair paradise your sense, yet such accept your Maker's work. He gave it me, which I as freely give. Hell shall unfold to entertain you to her widest gates, and send forth all her kings. There will be room, not like these narrow limits, to receive your numerous offspring. If no better place, thank him who puts me loath to this revenge on you who wrong me not for him who wronged. And should I at your harmless innocence melt, as I do, yet public reason, just honor, and empire with revenge enlarged by conquering this new world, compels me now to do what else, though damned, I should abhor.
So spake the fiend, and with necessity, the tyrant's plea, excused his devilish deeds. Then from his lofty stand on that high tree, down he alights among the sportful herd of those four-footed kinds, himself now one, now other, as their shape served best his end, nearer to view his prey, and unespied to mark what of their state he more might learn by word or action marked. About them round a lion now he stalks with fiery glare, then as a tiger, who by chance hath spied in some purlieu two gentle fawns at play, straight couches close, then rising changes oft his couchant watch, as one who chose his ground, whence rushing he might surest seize them both gripped in each paw. When Adam, first of men, to first of women Eve, thus moving speech turned him, all ear to hear new utterance flow.
Sole partner and sole part of all these joys, dearer thyself than all, Needs must the power that made us, and for us this ample world, be infinitely good, and of his good as liberal and free as infinite, that raised us from the dust and placed us here in all this happiness, who at his hand have nothing merited, nor can perform aught whereof he hath need. He who requires from us no other service than to keep this one, this easy charge, of all the trees in paradise that bear delicious fruit so various, not to taste that only tree of knowledge, planted by the tree of life. So near grows death to life. Whate'er death is, some dreadful thing, no doubt. For well thou knowst, God hath pronounced it death to taste that tree, the only sign of our obedience left among so many signs of power and rule conferred upon us, and dominion given over all other creatures that possess earth, air, and sea. Then let us not think hard one easy prohibition, who enjoy free leave so large to all things else, and choice unlimited of manifold delights. But let us ever praise him, and extol his bounty, following our delightful task to prune these growing plants and tend these flowers, which, were it toilsome, yet with thee was sweet.
To whom thus Eve replied,
O thou for whom and from whom I was formed, flesh of thy flesh, and without whom am to no end, my guide and head, what thou hast said is just and right. For we to him indeed all praises owe, and daily thanks, I chiefly who enjoy so far the happier lot, enjoying thee preeminent by so much odds, while thou like consort to thyself canst nowhere find. That day I oft remember, when from sleep I first awaked, and found myself reposed under a shade on flowers, much wondering where and what I was, whence thither brought and how. Not distant far from thence, a murmuring sound of waters issued from a cave, and spread into a liquid plain, then stood unmoved, pure as the expanse of heaven. I thither went with unexperienced thought, and laid me down on the green bank to look into the clear, smooth lake, that to me seemed another sky. As I bent down to look, just opposite, a shape within the watery gleam appeared, bending to look on me. I started back. It started back. But pleased I soon returned, pleased it returned as soon with answering looks of sympathy and love. There I had fixed mine eyes till now, and pined with vain desire, had not a voice thus warned me. What thou seest, what there thou seest, fair creature, is thyself. With thee it came and goes. But follow me, and I will bring thee where no shadow stays thy coming and thy soft embraces. He whose image thou art, him thou shalt enjoy inseparably thine. To him shalt bear multitudes like thyself, and thence be called mother of human race. What could I do but follow straight, invisibly thus led, till I espied thee, fair indeed and tall, under a platen. Yet methought, less fair, less winning soft, less amiably mild than that smooth, watery image. Back I turned. Thou following criedst aloud, Return, fair Eve. Whom fliest thou? Whom thou fliest, of him thou art. his flesh, his bone. To give thee being I lent out of my side to thee, nearest my heart, substantial life. To have thee by my side, henceforth an individual solace dear. Part of my soul I seek thee, and thee claim my other half. With that, thy gentle hand seized mine. I yielded, and from that time see how beauty is excelled by manly grace and wisdom, and is truly fair.
Our general mother, and with action unreproved, and meek surrender, half embracing leaned on our first father. Half her swelling breast naked met his under the flowing gold of her loose tresses hid. He, in delight both of her beauty and submissive charms, smiled with superior love, as Jupiter on Juno smiles when he imprains the clouds that shed May flowers, and pressed her matron lip with kisses pure. Aside the devil turned for envy, yet with jealous leer malign eyed them askance, and to himself thus plained,
Sight hateful, sight tormenting. Thus these two, imparadised in one another's arms, the happier Eden, shall enjoy their fill of bliss on bliss, while I to hell am thrust, where neither joy nor love, but fierce desire, among our other torments not the least, still unfulfilled with pain of longing pines. Yet let me not forget what I have gained from their own mouths. All is not theirs, it seems. One fatal tree there stands, of knowledge called, forbidden them to taste. Knowledge forbidden, suspicious, reasonless. Why should their Lord envy them that? Can it be sin to know? Can it be death? And do they only stand by ignorance? Is that their happy state, the proof of their obedience and their faith? Oh, fair foundation laid whereon to build their ruin. Hence I will excite their minds with more desire to know, and to reject envious commands invented with design to keep them low, whom knowledge might exalt equal with gods. Aspiring to be such, they taste and die. What likelier can ensue? But first, with narrow search, I must walk round this garden, and no corner leave unspied. A chance, but chance may lead where I may meet some wandering spirit of heaven, by fountain side or in thick shade retired, from him to draw what further would be learnt. Live while ye may, yet happy pair. Enjoy till I return short pleasures, for long woes are to succeed.
So saying, his proud step he scornful turned, but with sly circumspection, and began through wood, through waste, or hill, or dale his roam. Now came still evening on, and twilight grey had in her sober livery all things clad. Silence accompanied, for beast and bird, they to their grassy couch, these to their nests, were slunk, all but the wakeful nightingale. She all night long her amorous descant sung. Silence was pleased. Now glowed the firmament with living sapphires. Hesperus that led the starry host rode brightest, till the moon, rising in clouded majesty, at length, apparent queen, unveiled her peerless light, and o'er the dark her silver mantle threw. When Adam thus to Eve,
Fair consort, the hour of night, and all things now retired to rest, mind us of like repose. Since God hath set labour and rest as day and night to men successive, and the timely dew of sleep, now falling with soft slumbrous weight, inclines our eyelids. Other creatures all day long rove idle, unemployed, and less need rest. Man hath his daily work of body or mind appointed, which declares his dignity and the regard of heaven on all his ways, while other animals unactive range, and of their doings God takes no account. Tomorrow, ere fresh morning streak the east with first approach of light, we must be risen, and at our pleasant labour to reform yon flowery arbours, yonder alleys green, our walks at noon with branches overgrown that mock our scant manuring, and require more hands than ours to lop their wanton growth. Those blossoms also, and those dropping gums that lie bestrown, unsightly and unsmooth, ask riddance, if we mean to tread with ease. Meanwhile, as nature wills, night bids us rest.
to whom thus Eve with perfect beauty adorned,
My author and disposer, what thou bidst unargued I obey. So God ordains, God is thy law, thou mine. To know no more is woman's happiest knowledge and her praise. With thee conversing, I forget all time, all seasons and their change, all please alike. Sweet is the breath of morn, her rising sweet, with charm of earliest birds. Pleasant the sun when first on this delightful land he spreads his orient beams, on herb, tree, fruit, and flower, glistering with dew. Fragrant the fertile earth after soft showers, and sweet the coming on of grateful evening mild, then silent night with this her solemn bird, and this fair moon, and these the gems of heaven, her starry train. But neither breath of morn when she ascends with charm of earliest birds, nor rising sun on this delightful land, nor herb, fruit, flower glistering with dew, nor fragrance after showers, nor grateful evening mild, nor silent night with this her solemn bird, nor walk by moon or glittering starlight, without thee is sweet. But wherefore all night long shine these? For whom this glorious sight, when sleep hath shut all eyes?
to whom our general ancestor replied,
Daughter of God and man, accomplished Eve, these have their course to finish round the earth by morrow evening, and from land to land in order, though to nations yet unborn, ministering light prepared, they set and rise, lest total darkness should by night regain her old possession, and extinguish life in nature and all things, which these soft fires not only enlighten, but with kindly heat of various influence foment and warm, temper or nourish, or in part shed down their stellar virtue on all kinds that grow on earth, made hereby apter to receive perfection from the sun's more potent ray. These then, though unbeheld in deep of night, shine not in vain, nor think, though men were none, that heaven would want spectators, God want praise. Millions of spiritual creatures walk the earth unseen, both when we wake and when we sleep. All these with ceaseless praise his works behold, both day and night. How often from the steep of echoing hill or thicket have we heard celestial voices to the midnight air, sole or responsive each to other's note, singing their great Creator. Oft in bands while they keep watch, or nightly rounding walk, with heavenly touch of instrumental sounds in full harmonic number joined, their songs divide the night and lift our thoughts to heaven.
Thus talking hand in hand, alone they passed on to their blissful bower. It was a place chosen by the sovereign planter when he framed all things to man's delightful use. The roof of thickest covert was in woven shade, laurel and myrtle, and what higher grew of firm and fragrant leaf. On either side acanthus, and each odorous bushy shrub fenced up the verdant wall. Each beauteous flower, iris all hues, roses and jessamine, reared high their flourished heads between, and wrought mosaic. Underfoot the violet, crocus and hyacinth with rich inlay broidered the ground, more coloured than with stone of costliest emblem. Other creature here, beast, bird, insect, or worm, durst enter none, such was their awe of man. In shadier bower, more sacred and sequestered, though but feigned, Pan or Sylvanus never slept, nor nymph, nor Faunus haunted. Here, in close recess, with flowers, garlands, and sweet-smelling herbs, espoused Eve decked first her nuptial bed, and heavenly choirs the Hymenaeans sung. What day the genial angel to our sire brought her in naked beauty more adorned, more lovely than Pandora, whom the gods endowed with all their gifts, and oh, too like in sad event, when to the unwiser son of Japhet brought by Hermes, she ensnared mankind with her fair looks, to be avenged on him who had stole Jove's authentic fire. Hail, wedded love, mysterious law, true source of human offspring, sole propriety in paradise of all things common else. By thee adulterous lust was driven from men among the bestial herds to range. By thee, founded in reason, loyal, just, and pure, relations dear, and all the charities of father, son, and brother first were known. Far be it that I should write thee sin or blame, or think thee unbefitting a holiest place, perpetual fountain of domestic sweets, whose bed is undefiled and chaste pronounced, present or past, as saints and patriarchs used. Here love his golden shafts employs, here lights his constant lamp, and waves his purple wings, reigns here and revels, not in the bought smile of harlots, loveless, joyless, unendeared, casual fruition, nor in court amours, mixed dance, or wanton mask, or midnight ball, or serenade, which the starved lover sings to his proud fair, best quitted with disdain. These, lulled by nightingales, embracing slept, and on their naked limbs the flowery roof showered roses, which the morn repaired. Sleep on, blessed pair, and oh, yet happiest if ye seek no happier state, and know to know no more. Now had night measured with her shadowy cone halfway uphill this vast sublunar vault, and from their ivory port the cherubim, forth issuing at the accustomed hour, stood armed to their night watches in warlike parade, when Gabriel to his next in power thus spake.
Aziel, half these draw off, and coast the south with strictest watch. These other wheel the north. Our circuit meets full west.
As flame they part, half wheeling to the shield, half to the spear. From these 2 strong and subtle spirits he called that near him stood, and gave them thus in charge.
Ithuriel and Zephon, with winged speed, search through this garden, leave unsearched no nook, but chiefly where those 2 fair creatures lodge, now laid perhaps asleep, secure of harm. This evening from the sun's decline arrived who tells of some infernal spirit seen. Hitherward bent, who could have thought, escaped the bars of hell, on errand bad, no doubt. Such where ye find, seize fast, and hither bring.
So saying, on he led his radiant files, dazzling the moon. These to the bower direct in search of whom they sought. Him there they found, squat like a toad, close at the ear of Eve, essaying by his devilish art to reach the organs of her fancy, and with them forge illusions as he list, phantasms and dreams. Or if, inspiring venom, he might taint the animal spirits that from pure blood arise, like gentle breaths from rivers pure, thence raise at least distempered, discontented thoughts, vain hopes, vain aims, inordinate desires, blown up with high conceits engendering pride. Him thus intent, Ithuriel with his spear touched lightly. For no falsehood can endure touch of celestial temper, but returns of force to its own likeness. Up he starts, discovered and surprised, as when a spark lights on a heap of nitrous powder laid fit for the tons a magazine to store against a rumoured war, the smutty grain with sudden blaze diffused inflames the air. So started up in his own shape the fiend. Back stepped those two fair angels, half amazed, so sudden to behold the grisly king. Yet thus, unmoved with fear, accost him soon.
Which of those rebel spirits adjudged to hell comest thou, escaped thy prison? And transformed, why satst thou like an enemy in wait, here watching at the head of these that sleep?
Know ye not then?
Said Satan, filled with scorn.
Know ye not me? Ye knew me once, no mate for you, there sitting where ye durst not soar. Not to know me argues yourselves unknown, the lowest of your throng. Or if ye know, I ask ye, and superfluous begin your message, like to end, as much in vain.
To whom thus Zephon, answering scorn with scorn,
Think not, revolted spirit, thy shape the same, or undiminished brightness, to be known as when thou stoodst in heaven upright and pure. That glory then, when thou no more wast good, departed from thee, and thou resemblest now thy sin, and place of doom obscure and foul. But come, for thou be sure shalt give account to him who sent us, whose charge is to keep this place inviolable, and these from harm.
So spake the cherub, and his grave rebuke, severe in youthful beauty, added grace invincible. Abashed the devil stood, and felt how awful goodness is, and saw virtue in her shape how lovely, saw and pined his loss. But chiefly to find here observed his lustre visibly impaired, yet seemed undaunted.
If I must contend,
Said he,
best with the best, the sender, not the sent, or all at once, more glory will be won, or less be lost.
Thy fear,
said Zephon bold,
will save us trial what the least can do single against thee, wicked, and thence weak.
The fiend replied not, overcome with rage, but like a proud steed reined, went haughty on, champing his iron curb. To strive or fly he held it vain, or from above had quelled his heart, not else dismayed. Now drew they nigh the western point, where those half-rounding guards just met, and closing stood in squadron joined, awaiting next command. To whom their chief, Gabriel, from the front thus called aloud,
O friends, I hear the tread of nimble feet hasting this way. And now by glimpse discern Ithuriel and Zephon through the shade, and with them comes a third of regal port, but faded splendor one, who by his gait and fierce demeanor seems the prince of hell, not likely to part hence without contest. Stand firm, for in his look defiance lowers.
He scarce had ended, When those two approached, and brief related whom they brought, where found, how busied, in what form and posture couched, to whom with stern regard thus Gabriel spake.
Why hast thou, Satan, broke the bounds prescribed to thy transgressions, and disturbed the charge of others who approve not to transgress by thy example, but have power and right to question thy bold entrance on this place, employed, it seems, to violate sleep, and those whose dwelling God hath planted here in bliss? But mark what I read thee now. Avaunt, fly thither whence thou fledst. If from this hour within these hallowed limits thou appear, back to the infernal pit I drag thee chained, and seal thee so as henceforth not to scorn the facile gates of hell too slightly barred.
So threatened he, but Satan to no threats gave heed, but waxing more in rage replied,
Then when I am thy captive, talk of chains, proud limitary cherub. But ere then, far heavier load thyself expect to feel from my prevailing arm, though heaven's king ride on thy wings, and thou with thy compeers, used to the yoke, drawst his triumphant wheels in progress through the road of heaven, star-paved.
While thus he spake, the angelic squadron bright turned fiery red, sharpening in mooned horns their phalanx, and began to hem him round with ported spears, as thick as when a field of Ceres, ripe for harvest, waving bends her bearded grove of ears, which way the wind sways them. The careful ploughman doubting stands, lest on the threshing floor his hopeful sheaves prove chaff. On the other side, Satan alarmed, collecting all his might dilated stood, like Tenerife or Atlas unremoved. His stature reached the sky, and on his crest sat horror plumed, nor wanted in his grasp what seemed both spear and shield. Now dreadful deeds might have ensued, not only paradise in this commotion, but the starry cope of heaven perhaps, or all the elements at least had gone to wrack, disturbed and torn with violence of this conflict, had not soon the Eternal, to prevent such horrid fray, hung forth in heaven his golden scales, yet seen betwixt Astrea and the Scorpion sign, wherein all things created first he weighed, the pendulous round earth with balanced air in counterpoise. Now ponders all events, battles and realms. In these he put two weights, the sequel each of parting and of fight. The latter quick up flew and kicked the beam, which Gabriel spying, thus bespake the fiend.
Satan, I know thy strength, and thou knowst mine, neither our own but given. What folly, then, to boast what arms can do, since thine no more than heaven permits, nor mine, though doubled now, to trample thee as mire. For proof, look up, and read thy lot in yon celestial sign, where thou art weighed, and shown how light, how weak, if thou resist.
The fiend looked up and knew his mounted scale aloft, nor more, but fled murmuring, and with him fled the shades of night. Now morn her rosy steps i' the eastern clime advancing, sowed the earth with orient pearl. When Adam waked, so customed, for his sleep was airy light from pure digestion bred, and temperate vapours bland, which the only sound of leaves and fuming rills, Aurora's fan, lightly dispersed, and the shrill matin song of birds on every bough. So much the more his wonder was to find unwakened Eve with tresses discomposed, and glowing cheek as through unquiet rest. He on his side, leaning half raised, with looks of cordial love, hung over her enamoured, and beheld beauty, which whether waking or asleep shot forth peculiar graces. Then with voice on Flora breathes, her hand soft touching, whispered thus,
Awake, my fairest, my espoused, my latest found, heaven's last best gift, my ever new delight. Awake. The morning shines, and the fresh field calls us. We lose the prime to mark how spring our tended plants, how blows the citron grove, what drops the myrrh, and what the balmy reed. How nature paints her colours, how the bee sits on the bloom, extracting liquid sweet.
Such whispering waked her, but with startled eye on Adam, whom embracing, thus she spake.
O soul, in whom my thoughts find all repose, my glory, my perfection, glad I see thy face and morn returned. For I this night, such night till this I never passed, have dreamed, if dreamed, not as I oft am wont of thee, works of day past or morrow's next design, but of offence and trouble, which my mind knew never till this irksome night. Methought, close at mine ear one called me forth to walk with gentle voice. I thought it thine. It said, Why sleep'st thou, Eve? Now is the pleasant time, the cool, the silent, save where silence yields to the night-warbling bird, that now awake tunes sweetest his love-laboured song. Now reigns full-orbed the moon, and with more pleasing light shadowy sets off the face of things, in vain if none regard. Heaven wakes with all his eyes, whom to behold but thee, nature's desire, in whose sight all things joy with ravishment, attracted by thy beauty still to gaze. I rose as at thy call, but found thee not. To find thee I directed then my walk, and on methought alone I passed through ways that brought me on a sudden to the tree of interdicted knowledge. Fair it seemed, much fairer to my fancy than by day, and as I wondering looked, beside it stood one shaped and winged like one of those from heaven by us oft seen. His dewy locks distilled ambrosia. On that tree he also gazed, and, O fair plant, said he, with fruit surcharged, deigns none to ease thy load and taste thy sweet, nor God nor man? Is knowledge so despised? Or envy or what reserve forbids to taste? Forbid who will, none shall from me withhold longer thy offered good. Why else set here? This said, he paused not, but with venturous arm he plucked, he tasted. Me damp horror chilled at such bold words, vouched with a deed so bold. But he thus, overjoyed, O fruit divine, sweet of thyself, but much more sweet thus cropped. forbidden here it seems, as only fit for gods, yet able to make gods of men. And why not gods of men, since good the more communicated, more abundant grows, the author not impaired, but honoured more? Here, happy creature, fair angelic Eve, partake thou also. Happy though thou art, happier thou mayst be, worthier canst not be. Taste this, and be henceforth among the gods thyself a goddess, not to earth confined, but sometimes in the air as we, sometimes ascend to heaven by merit thine, and see what life the gods live there, and such live thou. So saying, he drew nigh, and to me held, even to my mouth, of that same fruit held part which he had plucked. The pleasant savoury smell so quickened appetite that I methought could not but taste. Forthwith up to the clouds with him I flew, and underneath beheld the earth outstretched immense, a prospect wide and various. Wondering at my flight and change to this high exaltation,
Image of myself and dearer half, the trouble of thy thoughts this night in sleep affects me equally, nor can I like this uncouth dream, of evil sprung, I fear. Yet evil whence? In thee can harbour none created pure. But know that in the soul are many lesser faculties that serve reason as chief. Among these, fancy next her office holds. Of all external things which the 5 watchful senses represent, she forms imaginations, airy shapes, which reason, joining or disjoining, frames all what we affirm or what deny, and call our knowledge or opinion, then retires into her private cell when nature rests. Oft in her absence mimic fancy wakes to imitate her, but misjoining shapes wild work produces oft, and most in dreams, ill-matching words and deeds long past or late. Some such resemblances methinks I find of our last evening's talk in this thy dream, but with addition strange. Yet be not sad. Evil into the mind of God or man may come and go, so unapproved, and leave no spot or blame behind, which gives me hope that what in sleep thou didst abhor to dream, waking thou never wilt consent to do. Be not disheartened then, nor cloud those looks that wont to be more cheerful and serene than when fair morning first smiles on the world. And let us to our fresh employments rise among the groves, the fountains, and the flowers that open now their choicest bosom smells, reserved from night, and kept for thee in store.
So cheered he his fair spouse, and she was cheered. But silently a gentle tear let fall from either eye, and wiped them with her hair. 2 other precious drops that ready stood, each in their crystal sluice, he, ere they fell, kissed as the gracious signs of sweet remorse and pious awe that feared to have offended. On to their morning's rural work they haste among sweet dews and flowers, where any row of fruit trees over woody reached too far their pampered boughs, and needed hands to check fruitless embraces, or they led the vine to wed her elm. She, spoused about him, twines her marriageable arms, and with her brings her dower the adopted clusters to adorn his barren leaves. Them thus employed beheld with pity heaven's high king, and to him called Raphael, the sociable spirit that deigned to travel with Tobias, and secured his marriage with the 7 times wedded maid.
Raphael,
Said he,
thou hear'st what stir on earth Satan from hell, scaped through the darksome gulf, hath raised in paradise, and how disturbed this night the human pair, how he designs in them at once to ruin all mankind. Go therefore, half this day, as friend with friend, converse with Adam, in what bower or shade thou find'st him from the heat of noon retired, to respite his day labor with repast or with repose. And such discourse bring on, as may advise him of his happy estate, happiness in his power, left free to will, left to his own free will, his will, though free, yet mutable. Whence warn him to beware he swerve not too secure. Tell him withal his danger, and from whom. What enemy, late fallen himself from heaven, is plotting now the fall of others from like state of bliss? By violence, no, for that shall be withstood, but by deceit and lies. This let him know, lest wilfully transgressing he pretend surprisal, unadmonished, unforewarned.
So spake the Eternal Father, and fulfilled all justice, nor delayed the winged saint after his charge received, but from among thousand celestial ardours where he stood, veiled with his gorgeous wings, upspringing light, flew through the midst of heaven. The angelic choirs on each hand parting, to his speed gave way through all th' imperial road, till at the gate of heaven arrived, the gate self-opened wide, on golden hinges turning, as by work divine the sovereign architect had framed. From hence no cloud, or to obstruct his sight star interposed, however small he sees, not unconformed to other shining globes, earth and the garden of God, with cedars crowned above all hills. As when by night the glass of Galileo, less assured, observes imagined lands and regions in the moon, or Pilate from amidst the Cyclades, Delos or Samos first appearing, kens a cloudy spot. Down thither prone in flight he speeds, and through the vast ethereal sky sails between worlds and worlds with steady wing, now on the polar winds, then with quick fan winnows the buxom air, till within soar of towering eagles, to all the fowls he seems a phoenix, gazed by all, as that sole bird, when to enshrine his relics in the sun's bright temple, to Egyptian Thebes he flies. At once on the eastern cliff of paradise he lights, and to his proper shape returns, a seraph winged. 6 wings he wore, to shade his lineaments divine. The pair that clad each shoulder broad came mantling o'er his breast with regal ornament. The middle pair girt like a starry zone his waist, and round skirted his loins and thighs with downy gold and colours dipped in heaven. The third, his feet shadowed from either heel with feathered mail sky-tinctured grain. Like Mayor's son he stood, and shook his plumes, that heavenly fragrance filled the circuit wide. Straight knew him all the bands of angels under watch, and to his state and to his message high in honour rise, for on some message high they guessed him bound. Their glittering tents he passed, and now is come into the blissful field, through groves of myrrh and flowering odours, cassia, nard, and balm, a wilderness of sweets. For nature here wantoned as in her prime, and played at will her virgin fancies, pouring forth more sweet, wild above rule or art, enormous bliss. Him through the spicy forest onward come Adam discerned, as in the door he sat of his cool bower, while now the mounted sun shot down direct his fervid rays, to warm earth's inmost womb, more warmth than Adam needs. And Eve within, due at her hour, prepared for dinner savoury fruits, of taste to please true appetite, and not disrelish thirst of nectarous draughts between, from milky stream, berry or grape. To whom thus Adam called,
Haste hither, Eve, and worth thy sight, behold eastward among those trees, What glorious shape comes this way moving? Seems another morn risen on mid-noon. Some great behest from heaven to us perhaps he brings, and will vouchsafe this day to be our guest. But go with speed, and what thy stores contain, bring forth and pour abundance, fit to honour and receive our heavenly stranger. Well we may afford our givers their own gifts, and large bestow from large bestowed, where nature multiplies her fertile growth, and by disburdening grows more fruitful, which instructs us not to spare.
Thus when with meats and drinks they had sufficed, not burdened nature, sudden mind arose in Adam not to let the occasion pass given him by this great conference to know of things above his world, and of their being who dwell in heaven, whose excellence he saw transcend his own so far, whose radiant forms divine effulgence, whose high power so far exceeded human. And his wary speech thus to th' imperial minister he framed.
Inhabitant with God, now know I well thy favour, in this honour done to man, under whose lowly roof thou hast vouchsafed to enter, and these earthly fruits to taste, food not of angels, yet accepted so as that more willingly thou couldst not seem at heaven's high feasts to have fed. Yet what compare?
To whom the winged hierarch replied,
O Adam, one Almighty is, from whom all things proceed, and up to him return, if not depraved from good. Created all such to perfection, one first matter all, endued with various forms, various degrees of substance, and in things that live, of life, but more refined, more spirituous and pure, as nearer to him placed, or nearer tending, each in their several active spheres assigned, till body up to spirit work, in bounds proportioned to each kind. So from the root springs lighter the green stalk, from thence the leaves more airy, last the bright consummate flower spirits odorous breathes. Flowers and their fruit, man's nourishment, by gradual scale sublimed, to vital spirits aspire, to animal, to intellectual, give both life and sense, fancy and understanding, whence the soul reason receives, and reason is her being, discursive or intuitive. Discourse is oftest yours, the latter most is ours, differing but in degree, of kind the same. Wonder not, then, what God for you saw good, if I refuse not, but convert as you to proper substance. Time may come when men with angels may participate, and find no inconvenient diet, nor too light fare. And from these corporal nutriments perhaps your bodies may at last turn all to spirit, improved by tract of time, and winged ascend ethereal as we, or may at choice here or in heavenly paradises dwell. If ye be found obedient, and retain unalterably firm his love entire, whose progeny you are. Meanwhile enjoy your fill what happiness this happy state can comprehend, incapable of more.
To whom the patriarch of mankind replied,
O favourable spirit, propitious guest, well hast thou taught the way that might direct our knowledge, and the scale of nature set from centre to circumference, whereon in contemplation of created things by steps we may ascend to God. But say, what meant that caution joined, if ye be found obedient? Can we want obedience, then, to him, or possibly his love desert, who formed us from the dust, and placed us here, full to the utmost measure of what bliss human desires can seek or apprehend?
To whom the angel,
Son of heaven and earth, attend. That thou art happy, owe to God. That thou continuest such, owe to thyself.
that is to thy obedience. Therein stand. This was that caution given thee. Be advised. God made thee perfect, not immutable. And good he made thee, but to persevere he left it in thy power, ordained thy will by nature free, not overruled by fate inextricable or strict necessity. Our voluntary service he requires, not our necessitated. Such with him finds no acceptance, nor can find. For how can hearts not free be tried whether they serve willing or no, who will but what they must by destiny, and can no other choose? Myself and all the angelic host that stand in sight of God enthroned, our happy state hold as you yours, while our obedience holds. On other surety none. Freely we serve because we freely love, as in our will to love or not. In this we stand or fall. And some are fallen, to disobedience fallen, and so from heaven to deepest hell. O fall from what high state of bliss into what woe!
To whom our great progenitor,
Thy words attentive, and with more delighted ear, divine instructor, I have heard, than when cherubic songs by night from neighboring hills aerial music send. Nor knew I not to be both will and deed created free. Yet that we never shall forget to love our Maker, and obey him whose command single is yet so just, my constant thoughts assured me, and still assure. Though what thou tell'st hath passed in heaven, some doubt within me move, but more desire to hear, if thou consent, the full relation, which must needs be strange, worthy of sacred silence to be heard. And we have yet large day, for scarce the sun hath finished half his journey, and scarce begins his other half in the great zone of heaven.
thus Adam made request, and Raphael, after short pause assenting, thus began.
High matter thou enjoin'st me, O prime of men, sad task and hard. For how shall I relate to human sense the invisible exploits of warring spirits? How, without remorse, the ruin of so many glorious once and perfect while they stood? How last unfold the secrets of another world, perhaps not lawful to reveal? Yet for thy good this is dispensed, and what surmounts the reach of human sense I shall delineate so, by likening spiritual to corporeal forms as may express them best. Though what if earth be but the shadow of heaven, and things therein each to other like, more than on earth is thought? As yet this world was not, and chaos wild reigned where these heavens now roll, where earth now rests upon her centre poised, when on a day, for time, though in eternity, applied to motion, measures all things durable by present, past, and future. On such day as heaven's great year brings forth, the imperial host of angels by imperial summons called, innumerable before the Almighty's throne, forthwith from all the ends of heaven appeared, under their hierarchs in orders bright. 10,000 ensigns high advanced, standards and gonfalons twixt van and rear stream in the air, and for distinction serve of hierarchies, of orders and degrees, or in their glittering tissues bear emblazed holy memorials, acts of zeal and love recorded eminent. Thus, when in orbs of circuit inexpressible they stood, orb within orb, the Father infinite, by whom in bliss embosomed sat the Son, amidst us from a flaming mount whose top brightness had made invisible, thus spake.
Hear all ye angels, progeny of light, thrones, dominations, princedoms, virtues, powers, hear my decree, which unrevoked shall stand. This day I have begot whom I declare my only son, and on this holy hill him have anointed, whom ye now behold at my right hand. Your head I him appoint, and by myself have sworn to him shall bow all knees in heaven, and shall confess him Lord. Under his great vicegerent reign, abide united as one individual soul, forever happy. Him who disobeys, me disobeys, breaks union, and that day cast out from God and blessed vision falls into utter darkness, deep engulfed, his place ordained without redemption, without end.
So spake the Omnipotent, and with his words all seemed well pleased. All seemed, but were not all. With clouds exhaled from that high mount of God, whence light and shade spring both, the face of brightest heaven had changed to grateful twilight, for night comes not there in darker veil. And roseate dews disposed all but the unsleeping eyes of God to rest. Wide over all the plain, and wider far than all this globous earth in plain outspread, such are the courts of God. The angelic throng, dispersed in bands and files, their camp extend, by living streams among the trees of life. Pavilions numberless, and sudden reared celestial tabernacles, where they slept, fanned with cool winds, save those who in their coarse melodious hymns about the sovereign throne alternate all night long. But not so waked Satan. So call him now. His former name is heard no more in heaven. He, of the first, if not the first archangel, great in power, in favor and preeminence, envy against the Son of God, that day honored by his great Father and proclaimed Messiah, King anointed, could not bear, through pride, that sight, and thought himself impaired. Deep malice thence conceiving and disdain, soon as midnight brought on the dusky hour friendliest to sleep and silence, he resolved with all his legions to dislodge and leave unworshipped, unobeyed the throne supreme, contemptuous. And his next subordinate awakening, thus to him in secret spake.
Sleep'st thou, companion dear? What sleep can close thy eyelids? And rememberst what decree of yesterday so late hath passed the lips of heaven's Almighty? Thou to me thy thoughts wast wont, I mine to thee was wont to impart. Both waking we were one. How then can now thy sleep dissent? New laws thou seest imposed, new laws from him who reigns, new minds may raise in us who serve, new counsels to debate what doubtful may ensue. More in this place to utter is not safe. Assemble thou of all those myriads which we lead the chief. Tell them that by command, ere yet dim night her shadowy cloud withdraws, I am to haste, and all who under me their banners wave, homeward, with flying march, where we possess the quarters of the north, there to prepare fit entertainment to receive our King, the great Messiah, and his new commands, who speedily through all the hierarchies intends to pass triumphant and give laws.
So spake the false archangel, and infused bad influence into the unwary breast of his associate. He together calls, or several, one by one, the regent powers, under him regent, tells, as he was taught, that the most high commanding, now ere night, now ere dim night had disencumbered heaven, the great hierarchical standard was to move, tells the suggested cause, and casts between ambiguous words and jealousies to sound or taint integrity. But all obeyed the wonted signal and superior voice of their great potentate. For great indeed his name, and high was his degree in heaven. His countenance, as the morning star that guides the starry flock, allured them, and with lies drew after him the third part of heaven's host. Meanwhile, the eternal eye, whose sight discerns abstrusest thoughts, from forth his holy mount, and from within the golden lamps that burn nightly before him, saw without their light rebellion rising, saw in whom, how spread among the sons of morn, what multitudes were banded to oppose his high decree, and, smiling to his only son, thus said,
Son, thou in whom my glory I behold in full resplendence, heir of all my might, nearly it now concerns us to be sure of our omnipotence, and with what arms we mean to hold what anciently we claim of deity or empire. Such a foe is rising, who intends to erect his throne equal to ours throughout the spacious north, nor so content, hath in his thought to try in battle what our power is, or our right. Let us advise, and to this hazard draw with speed what force is left, and all employ in our defence, lest unawares we lose this our high place, our sanctuary, our hill.
To whom the sun, with calm aspect and clear lightning divine, ineffable, serene, made answer,
Mighty Father, thou thy foes justly hast in derision, and secure laughst at their vain designs and tumults vain, matter to me of glory, whom their hate illustrates, when they see all regal power given me to quell their pride, and in event know whether I be dexterous to subdue thy rebels, or be found the worst in heaven.
So spake the sun. But Satan, with his powers, far was advanced on winged speed, an host innumerable as the stars of night or stars of morning, dewdrops which the sun impearls on every leaf and every flower. Regions they passed, the mighty regencies of seraphim and potentates and thrones, in their triple degrees, regions to which all thy dominion, Adam, is no more than what this garden is to all the earth and all the sea, from one entire globose stretched into longitude. Which having passed, at length into the limits of the north they came. And Satan to his royal seat, high on a hill, far blazing, as a mount raised on a mount, with pyramids and towers from diamond quarries hewn and rocks of gold, the palace of great Lucifer, so called that structure in the dialect of men interpreted, which not long after he, affecting all equality with God, in imitation of that mount whereon Messiah was declared in sight of heaven, the mountain of the congregation called. For thither he assembled all his train, pretending, so commanded, to consult about the great reception of their king, thither to come, and with calumnious art of counterfeited truth, thus held their ears.
Thrones, dominations, princedoms, virtues, powers, if these magnific titles yet remain not merely titular, since by decree another now hath to himself engrossed all power, and us eclipsed under the name of King anointed, for whom all this haste of midnight march and hurried meeting here, this only to consult how we may best, with what may be devised of honours new, receive him, coming to receive from us knee tribute yet unpaid, prostration vile. Too much to one, but double how endured. To one and to his image now proclaimed. But what if better counsels might erect our minds and teach us to cast off this yoke? Will ye submit your necks and choose to bend the supple knee? Ye will not, if I trust to know ye right. Or if ye know yourselves, natives and sons of heaven, possessed before by none, and if not equal all, yet free, equally free. For orders and degrees jar not with liberty, but well consist. Who can in reason then or right assume monarchy over such as live by right his equals, if in power and splendor less, in freedom equal, or can introduce law and edict on us, who without law err not, much less for this to be our Lord, and look for adoration to the abuse of those imperial titles which assert our being ordained to govern, not to serve.
Thus far his bold discourse without control had audience, when among the seraphim Abdiel, than whom none with more zeal adored the deity and divine commands obeyed, stood up, and in a flame of zeal severe the current of his fury thus opposed.
O alienate from God, O spirit accursed, forsaken of all good, I see thy fall determined, and thy hapless crew involved in this perfidious fraud. Contagion spread both of thy crime and punishment. Henceforth no more be troubled how to quit the yoke of God's Messiah. Those indulgent laws will not now be vouchsafed. Other decrees against thee are gone forth without recall. That golden scepter which thou didst reject is now an iron rod to bruise and break thy disobedience. Well thou didst advise, yet not for thy advice or threats I fly these wicked tents devoted, lest the wrath impendent, raging into sudden flame, distinguish not, for soon expect to feel his thunder on thy head, devouring fire. Then who created thee, lamenting learn, when who can uncreate thee, thou shalt know.
So spake the seraph Abdiel, faithful found. Among the faithless, faithful only he. Among innumerable false, unmoved, unshaken, unseduced, unterrified, his loyalty he kept, his love, his zeal. Nor number nor example with him wrought to swerve from truth, or change his constant mind, though single. From amidst them forth he passed, long way through hostile scorn, which he sustained superior, nor of violence feared aught. And with retorted scorn his back he turned on those proud towers to swift destruction doomed. All night the dreadless angel, unpursued, through heaven's wide champaign held his way, till morn, waked by the circling hours, with rosy hand unbarred the gates of light. There is a cave within the mount of God, fast by his throne, where light and darkness in perpetual round lodge and dislodge by turns, which makes through heaven grateful vicissitude, like day and night. Light issues forth, and at the other door obsequious darkness enters, till her hour to veil the heaven, though darkness there might well seem twilight here. And now went forth the morn, such as in highest heaven, arrayed in gold imperial. From before her vanished night, shot through with orient beams. When all the plain, covered with thick embattled squadrons bright, chariots and flaming arms, and fiery steeds reflecting blaze on blaze, first met his view. War he perceived, war in procinct, and found already known what he for news had thought to have reported. Gladly then he mixed among those friendly powers, who him received with joy and acclamations loud, that one, that of so many myriads fallen, yet one returned not lost. Unto the sacred hill they led him high applauded, and present before the seat supreme, from whence a voice, from midst a golden cloud, thus mild was heard.
Servant of God, well done. Well hast thou fought the better fight, who single hast maintained against revolted multitudes the cause of truth, in word mightier than they in arms. And for the testimony of truth hast borne universal reproach, far worse to bear than violence. For this was all thy care, to stand approved in sight of God. The worlds judged thee perverse. The easier conquest now remains thee, aided by this host of friends, back on thy foes, more glorious to return than scorned thou didst depart, and to subdue by force who reason for their law refuse, right reason for their law, and for their king Messiah, who by right of merit reigns. Go, Michael, of celestial armies, prince, and thou in military prowess next, Gabriel, lead forth to battle these my sons invincible. Lead forth my armed saints, by thousands and by millions ranged for fight, equal in number to that godless crew rebellious, them with fire and hostile arms fearless assault, and to the brow of heaven pursuing, drive them out from God and bliss into their place of punishment, the gulf of Tartarus, which ready opens wide his fiery chaos to receive their fall.
And now all heaven had gone to wrack, with ruin overspread, had not the Almighty Father, where he sits shrined in his sanctuary of heaven secure, consulting on the sum of things, foreseen this tumult, and permitted all, advised, that his great purpose he might so fulfill, to honor his anointed Son, avenged upon his enemies, and to declare all power on him transferred. Whence to his Son, the assessor of his throne, he thus began.
Effulgence of my glory, Son beloved, Son in whose face invisible is beheld visibly what by deity I am, and in whose hand what by decree I do. Second omnipotence. 2 days are past. 2 days, as we compute the days of heaven, since Michael and his powers went forth to tame these disobedient. Sore hath been their fight, as likeliest was, when two such foes met armed. For to themselves I left them, and thou knowest, equal in their creation they were formed, save what sin hath impaired, which yet hath wrought insensibly, for I suspend their doom. Whence in perpetual fight they needs must last endless, and no solution will be found. War wearied hath performed what war can do, and to disordered rage let loose the reins, with mountains as with weapons armed, which makes wild work in heaven, and dangerous to the main. 2 days are therefore past. The third is thine. For thee I have ordained it, and thus far have suffered, that the glory may be thine of ending this great war, since none but thou can end it. Into thee such virtue and grace immense I have transfused, that all may know in heaven and hell thy power above compare. And this perverse commotion governed thus, to manifest thee worthiest to be heir of all things, to be heir and to be king, by sacred unction, thy deserved right. Go then, thou mightiest in thy father's might, ascend my chariot, guide the rapid wheels that shake heaven's basis, bring forth all my war, my bow and thunder, my almighty arms gird on, and sword upon thy puissant thigh. Pursue these sons of darkness, drive them out from all heaven's bounds into the utter deep. There let them learn, as likes them, to despise God and Messiah, his anointed king.
He said, and on his sun with rays direct shone full. He all his father full expressed, ineffably into his face received. And thus the filial Godhead answering spake.
O Father, O supreme of heavenly thrones, first, highest, holiest, best, thou always seekst to glorify thy Son, I always thee, as is most just. This I my glory account, my exaltation, and my whole delight, that thou in me well pleased declarest thy will fulfilled, which to fulfill is all my bliss. Scepter and power thy giving I assume, and gladlier shall resign, when in the end thou shalt be all in all, and I in thee forever, and in me all whom thou lovest. But whom thou hatest, I hate, and can put on thy terrors, as I put thy mildness on, image of thee in all things, and shall soon, armed with thy might, rid heaven of these rebelled, to their prepared ill mansion driven down to chains of darkness and the undying worm, that from thy just obedience could revolt, whom to obey is happiness entire. Then shall thy saints unmixed, and from the impure far separate, circling thy holy mount, unfeigned hallelujahs to thee sing, hymns of high praise, and I among them chief.
So spake the Son, and into terror changed his countenance, too severe to be beheld, and full of wrath bent on his enemies. At once the four spread out their starry wings, with dreadful shade contiguous, and the orbs of his fierce chariot rolled, as with the sound of torrent floods, or of a numerous host. He on his impious foes right onward drove, gloomy as night. Under his burning wheels the steadfast Empyrean shook throughout, all but the throne itself of God. Full soon among them he arrived, in his right hand grasping 10,000 thunders, which he sent before him, such as in their souls infixed plagues. They, astonished, all resistance lost, all courage, down their idle weapons dropped. O'er shields and helms and helmet heads he rode, of thrones and mighty seraphim prostrate, that wished the mountains now might be again thrown on them, as a shelter from his ire. Nor less on either side tempestuous fell his arrows from the fourfold visaged four, distinct with eyes, and from the living wheels distinct alike with multitude of eyes. One spirit in them ruled, and every eye glared lightning, and shot forth pernicious fire among the accursed, that withered all their strength, and of their wonted vigor left them drained. Exhausted, spiritless, afflicted, fallen. Yet half his strength he put not forth, but checked his thunder in mid-volley, for he meant not to destroy, but root them out of heaven. The overthrown he raised, and as a herd of goats or timorous flock together thronged, drove them before him thunderstruck. pursued with terrors and with furies to the bounds and crystal wall of heaven, which opening wide rolled inward, and a spacious gap disclosed into the wasteful deep. The monstrous sight struck them with horror backward, but far worse urged them behind. Headlong themselves they threw down from the verge of heaven. Eternal wrath burned after them to the bottomless pit. Hell heard the unsufferable noise. Hell saw heaven ruining from heaven, and would have fled affrighted. But strict fate had cast too deep her dark foundations, and too fast had bound. 9 days they fell. Confounded chaos roared, and felt tenfold confusion in their fall through his wild anarchy, so huge a rout encumbered him with ruin. Hell at last, yawning, received them whole, and on them closed. Hell their fit habitation, fraught with fire unquenchable, the house of woe and pain. Disburdened heaven rejoiced, and soon repaired her mural breach, returning whence it rolled. Sole victor from the expulsion of his foes, Messiah his triumphal chariot turned. To meet him all his saints, who silent stood eye-witnesses of his almighty acts, with jubilee advanced. And as they went, shaded with branching palm, each order bright sung triumph, and hymn sung victorious King, Son, heir, and Lord, to him dominion given, worthiest to reign. He celebrated rode triumphant through mid-heaven, into the courts and temple of his mighty Father throned on high, who into glory him received, where now he sits at the right hand of bliss. Thus measuring things in heaven by things on earth at thy request, and that thou mayst beware by what is past, to thee I have revealed what might have else to human race been hid, the discord which befell, and war in heaven among the angelic powers, and the deep fall of those too high aspiring, who rebelled with Satan. He who envies now thy state, who now is plotting how he may seduce thee also from obedience, that with him, bereaved of happiness, thou mayst partake his punishment, eternal misery, which would be all his solace and revenge, as a despite done against the Most High, thee once to gain companion of his woe. But listen not to his temptations, warn thy weaker. Let it profit thee to have heard by terrible example the reward of disobedience. Firm they might have stood, yet fell. Remember, and fear to transgress.